All right. It is 8:03 p.m. on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. Call to order for the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee regular meeting, and a quorum is present. We have Commissioner Nealon in place for place 7. All right. Do we have any public comments? Hearing none, we move on to that. Consent agenda. All of the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless requested by the chair or a committee member, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item number 1, consideration, discussion, and possible action to approve the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee meeting minutes for February 13th, 2024, regular session, April 10th, 2024, regular session, May 8th, 2024, regular session, and June 12th, 2024, regular session.
I move that we approve the minutes for the CIF.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All right. It's properly moved by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Stinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, item is passed. Regular agenda, agenda item number 2, consideration, discussion, and possible action on appointing a chairperson to the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee. The floor is open now. We have a vacancy in the chairperson position, and looking for any nominations. So before we get to that nomination, Scott, if you can give some background on really what the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee really is, since we have new commissioners.
Sure. Thank you. So first, I'll start that with this current authorization of the advisory committee, we are towards the tail end of it. So whomever is appointed chairperson may conceivably only have a meeting or two, although could go longer. But once it's reauthorized, when we come back again to do water, wastewater, we'll do another chair again. So maybe it could be that same person, but just knowing that whomever may be appointed, it may not be for many meetings. but yes, so the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee is charged with um, evaluating the city's growth and the growth potential. So we look at sort of future land use, and so where the city is growing, and sort of doing our best to read the tea leaves, and allocating, where future infrastructure, water lines, and wastewater lines should go, and determining, using the comprehensive plan now that we have that, what those future land uses are, and based on those land uses, we're able to determine or estimate the amount of demand coming from that area, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, or open space parkland, and through that, then we can say, okay, we need 16-inch lines or 36-inch wastewater lines, whatever it may be, and then we try to allocate and balance the needs of the community as it grows, because you don't want to put all of the I say required, but all of the potential infrastructure on the plan, because then you're going to have a very high impact fee, and the development that's you're anticipating, with all of that may not actually occur, and so you're just putting a lot of charges on the development that is occurring, and so you're trying to balance the development's needs in terms of having reasonable and fair pricing with the needs of the city to collect the revenue to expand our capacities for water and wastewater. So as I said, we start off with water, wastewater, looking at land uses, and then from those land uses we get those LUEs, and then we lay out those future water lines, wastewater lines, and then sewer plant upgrades, new water sources, maybe potentially in the next one, water treatment facilities, and then with that comes with cost estimates, and that becomes basically a recommended impact fee for water and wastewater, which then goes on to the city council, and they've generally approved those. And through state law, we can only assess 50% of the cost of the development. So you say your impact fee for all of the development ends up being $8,000 per LUE, but we can only assess $4,000 of that on the development. So what the developers or people who are paying these fees, they're only actually paying 50% of the cost. The 50% comes from bonds or our current taxpayers, or sales taxes, other revenue streams potentially. But that's historically what the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee has looked at as water and wastewater. This past time, though, we did introduce roadway impact fees, and so that's where we are now, having done water and wastewater back in April, I believe.
Council approved the impact fees last July for water and wastewater.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's been a year. We've been working on the roadway stuff for a year.
But it is roadway impact fees are new to us, so there was a lot of learning about them, determining if they were actually best for the city and what we were needing, because we have heard, who hasn't, and we've all dealt with it, the traffic in the city, and so with roadway impact fees, we look at our thoroughfare plan, which was updated in 2022, as well as all of the traffic improvements that come from developments out of their traffic impact analyses. Because when development comes in, they don't build 100% of what their traffic impact analysis may show they need. Their pro rata, their fair share isn't always 100%, and so they may construct certain turn lanes or additional roads, but it's almost never the full list of all of their roadway improvements. And so those unbuilt improvements plus our thoroughfare plan are what put into our roadway impact fee. But under state statute, we can't go more than 6 miles or 7.
6 miles.
6 miles. We can't have a district larger than 6 miles in any direction. So we have 3 service areas that we've broken Manor into. And that is, by minimum, we could have 2, but we did 3 because we're trying to equitably divide this roadway impact fee within each district, because we didn't want one service area to be overly burdened and potentially limit development within that service area, because another service area is far less because there are just few improvements there. And so we spent many months looking at those service boundaries to try to balance the proposed roadway impact fee equitably and as evenly as possible between them. And then with the roadway impact fee, should it be approved, that goes into a restricted fund like all other impact fees. The city would have 10 years to spend those funds within the service area in which they are collected and on improvements which are within the plan. So we necessarily can't go do other stuff without amending the plan. So those roads on the thoroughfare plan or those turn lanes, anything that adds capacity, we can't use it for maintenance and improvements of the road, but we can use the funds to add capacity. Does that help? Okay.
And the thoroughfare plan is essentially what Austin has as a roadway capacity plan. It's the same thing. It's a list of projects that would that are prioritized across the city, or the say like service area 3 generates enough revenue to knock off the first project on that list in that area. Is that how that's?
So we haven't gone in and prioritized the roadways within the service areas.
Okay.
That could be a good recommendation
Oh.
to do. But because right now it is just a matter of trying to establish the fee. We have already approved, the improvements within each service area. The service area boundaries were set and the improvements within those were set. But then, yeah, the prioritized list of those hasn't been. And that could be something we work on, or maybe that's something.
Yeah, like
Thank
for
you.
for water and wastewater, it's not really prioritized. It's when something comes in that triggers it.
Okay.
So, like I said, we've got the list with with the roadways and how an estimated cost, and that's where we're at this point. Once we go over this last bit, then we still need to make a recommendation to council about what the impact fee for roadways is going to be. That'll be at the next meeting.
And RIF is the only one that's affected by the service areas, correct? Wastewater, wastewater are not confined to the 6 mile.
Correct. Yeah, water and wastewater are citywide, same rate throughout the entire city, and it's water and wastewater are based on platting date, and so depending on when you develop, you get your rate set, and even if they increase, if our impact fees increase, but your plat is already recorded, you stay at the older rate. And we have had water and wastewater impact fees since the 80s.
Yeah,
So it's been a while. We have a whole list of, when your plat was approved and the rate date ranges and the
Yeah.
fees you would pay. And so,
and you used to update it every 5 years. Now we do it basically every year. Just because for the growth, we want to make sure we can get, new projects covered with all the growth.
Yeah.
Clean water.
All right. So, thank you for that. Good discussion there. Let's get back to agenda item number 2, and with the nomination for a chairperson.
Is there any interest?
Well, I can tell y'all, I do most of the heavy lifting for anything that the committee sends to city council, if that changes your mind about anything. I mean, basically, really, we need somebody to run the meetings. So, I don't know if that changes anything.
I'd like to nominate Gabriel. Gabrielle for chairman.
All right, we have a nomination for Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I will second that one.
Have a second. All right. Do we have any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Stensland.
All right. We have another nomination. All right. So do we have a second on that?
Can we second or can we also, can I do a second on that one as well? Or
I'll second it. That sounds self-aggrandizing.
All right, all
As long as it opens up for discussion, sure.
Yes, so there you go, discussion. All right, we got two
I
nominations.
think
right?
Jeff would do a fantastic job. That's I don't know. I'll open that discussion. Jeff would do a fantastic job.
I yield to whatever you decide. But I get really excited about nerdy things, so I like to make fees sound fun.
Yeah, I see that, right? So you have at least from one nominee that she's recommending someone else. So replace the nominee, right? So what say you? I mean, you want to or no? So that way we can vote on it, right? If you're advocating for someone else.
I will if I will be here and I'll be here for all the meetings. But I think Jeff would do a fantastic job, and he voiced that he was very excited about this committee, and leading it. And so I don't want to take away from that excitement that he has. And I think if we have that level of interest, then that's who I'm all for him.
All right. Good to go. Where we go, we're gonna blast this first. So we're gonna vote on
I guess it's a substitute motion. Would this be a substitute nomination?
no, it's just
Just a nomination.
yeah, it's nominated, but we're still going to vote. So if you want to take that back, right, are you still nominating Commissioner Ryan?
On Commissioner Orion's recommendation, I'll rescind and move that we vote for Jeffrey.
Yes.
I thank you for your vote of confidence.
All right. Okay. So so that one was previously moved by Commissioner Ryan and second by Commissioner Neela to appoint Commissioner Stensland to the community as chairperson to the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee. All right, any questions on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed? Hearing none? All right, it's passed. And now we have a chairperson. All right. So I vacate this seat.
Oh wait. Oh, for now. Oh, it happens now.
Yeah, you get to run the rest of the meeting.
Alrighty. No warm up here, y'all. Continuing on to item 3. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Chavis, for that. We'll move on to item 3, which is consideration, discussion, and possible action on the corrected impact fee comparison chart and new impact fee comparison chart between the chart. I don't know what that word's in there. That includes Manor, Hutto, Liberty Hill, and Bastrop. And the chart is in your backup. The chart has the city of Manor, the proposed addition or the proposed changes highlighted there in yellow, with the current state or the current fee structure above the highlighted line.
Correct. I can't remember the last time we met, April. It was brought to my attention that there were some issues with the spreadsheet. And so I went back and I made the correction. And what this does, it just compares the existing Manor impact fees and then what it would be if we add the roadway impact fees in, and then it compares it. The main one that Barth kept bringing up was Hutto, because Hutto, they've got set roadway impact fees for everybody. It's the same amount no matter what. And so that's what these costs are based on in comparison. And if you look, if we add roadway impact fees for the lowest one for Manor, it's still lower than what Hutto is for their combined impact fees. And so this is just going over, like I said, there was an error in the math. So we went in and corrected it. And then the next one.
Can I ask a question how this is, so I make sure I'm reading the chart correctly? So is it, who are these fees being assessed to? Because you said Hutto is assessed to everyone no matter what, or is this $2,200 about being assessed to new residents in Manor, or depending on what
Well,
your property is?
Basically, when Hutto, when you develop, like if it's a subdivision with homes, it's got the same impact fee amount as if it was commercial. I know you weren't here when we were in the discussion about this. The way the roadway impact fees are calculated is based on the use. So you've got residential versus non-residential. And so residential, it's set per house. Non-residential would be like commercial, and that's based on the building size and other factors. And so what Hutto decided was they're not going to have a different one based on the development. They're just going to have a flat fee. And so that at the next meeting when we discuss that could be an option to send to council and be like, okay, there are other options too where we could set it lower for commercial development if we wanted to, because they're having concerns brought up at previous meetings that if we make it too high for commercial, it may slow down commercial development.
Impact fees are oftentimes, and tell me if I'm correct on this, are oftentimes set based on your impact on the PM peak hour. So that 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock or 5 to 6 o'clock hour, how many trips you generate or are anticipated or
Yes.
predicted to generate based on normal development trip impacts.
Yes.
That's what determines your fee. So you'll see, like on Georgetown, a low impact fee is about $5,000, but a high impact fee is $18,765. So in other words, like that business, whatever group would be generating 18,007 or having be assessed 18,765, has a high generation of trips during that peak hour.
Yes. And the way the impact fee, it's based on vehicle miles. And so depending on what, if it's a HEB, then they do so many vehicle miles. And so you take that vehicle miles times the estimated
Trips per
impact
hour.
fee amount, and then that's how you get the fee for them.
So-
But all that stuff that's coming in over there, they're not going to have to do impact fees because their plat's already
They're
recorded.
already platted.
So for this chart, you have this is representative of a single family home, which I think is a 4.1 VMT. If I remember that whole chart
Yeah,
right?
it's 3.9 to 4.1.
Okay, that's in the- Yeah, so this one is just saying like an impact fee for a single family home, at least on Mainers I can speak to.
Right. If you go back in the minutes, there was a presentation I did, basically, and it shows how we came up with the calculations. So, if you want, you can reach out to me and I can send you that since y'all weren't part of the committee then.
Yes. One more question. Sorry.
Oh, sure.
So is how it's assessed. So when is it? So this $13,000 is going to be paid by someone when they move into their new property, or is it charged as part of property taxes? How is it paid?
So it's paid by the builder. So the
Yeah.
resident
It's a pass-through.
indirectly pays it probably in
Yeah.
their housing costs, which is
Yeah.
in their development costs is why when
But it does not
Can't remember
affect
Timmerman.
current residents. Current residents don't have to pay any of these. It's just new stuff coming in.
yeah, so as our developer representative, Barth Sherman, he was advocating a lot for the lower ones for the commercial, because as a developer, those are costs that he has to bear, but then it usually get passed on, to whoever's buying that building or leasing it, and same with the homeowner. So the home builder pays it at their building permit, but that usually
Yeah.
would then find its way translated to housing costs.
One-time fee though.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Now, would you also assess, is the plan for the RAF to be applied based on, say, build out? Let's say that I'm leasing out a C2 or a C3, a suite in a C3 parcel. Would I have to pay that impact fee before or at my permitting based on what I'm going to do my business use? Or is it that granular here? Is it based on zoning code or is it based on use?
It would be based on the use that the developer did when they went in. So when they built
Right.
that shell building that you came in to do a tenant
Yeah.
finish out
So
on,
they may
we would
pass
have-
that cost along to you.
At site plan on anticipated use.
yeah, and so kind of jump ahead in the ordinance, but basically, yeah, that we would figure out the maximum assessment for the development, and if we do set a lower rate, that's actually what they would pay. But we would say this development, based on all the proposed uses and square footages and the vehicle miles generated,
Yes.
has a maximum assessment of X. But the Community Impact Advisory Committee and the City Council approved a lower rate. So when you actually go to collect it, it's that collected rate, but it is from the developer who's building it. Normally, we shouldn't be collecting it from someone who's leasing a space.
Right.
That
Wonderful.
wouldn't happen.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions on item 3?
Yeah, there's 2 more tables in there if y'all want to discuss it. Basically, so these tables go into the cost breakdown based on residential versus industrial. So you can see Hutto is a little bit cheaper when it comes to the industrial because they have that set fee amount, whereas for Manor, we use the 50% roadway impact fee. The low one was in service area 2 and the high one is in service area 1. And so we just use those 2 to come up with the calculations. So it's based on vehicle miles per 1,000 square feet of developer areas. Like if you have a 315,000 square foot warehouse or something, then we calculate the fee based on that. And I show comparisons to other cities that do not have roadway impact fees, like Bastrop and Liberty Hill. So, but you can see if you compare the industrial sites for Manor and Hutto, that Hutto is cheaper because they have a set fee amount per vehicle mile.
Which is $400.
Yes.
Yeah. What stakeholder have we heard from, like the chamber or just other stakeholders about I'm looking at obviously the large industrial high end. Is that something that they find to be digestible, or could that hinder, or could that hinder?
Well, we've really only heard from one developer, Barth Timmerman, who's on the committee. He's just not here tonight. And that's what his concern was, that if we leave it set this high for industrial or commercial, that it will hinder growth in those areas. Because, it is a lot of money. And like Scott was saying, the developer has to pay for that up front. Mm-hmm. And they can't recoup it as easy as they can for a single family lot.
Correct. Because the thought is, if we have a high fee here, we're right on 130 and 290. We're right there, that corner. So I understand that desire, why we see all that, all those buildings going up in that type of form, the tilt-up walls. But my concern would be that if that fee is so high that it actually encourages them to build in our ETJ or on the outs, and then they're still going to be impacting 290 because they'll be east of the city and traversing through it with their large trucks.
Yes.
So that's I'm not sure if that's a consideration to.
That's something we can discuss at the next meeting because it's not on tonight's agenda. But yeah, it's basically what we need to do at the next meeting is come up with what the committee wants to suggest to council. because we haven't sent a
Mhm.
recommendation to council yet. So you can, we can use these charts, like, if we use this for, it's X dollars, but compared to Hutto, it's a lot more. So, and like you said, there are chances they would go out in the ETJ, still affect the traffic here. But to note, um, we can't use any of these impact fees on any TxDOT or county roads. So we are limited to city-owned roads for the work. So,
And I'm also looking in comparison to Pflugerville. I know they have a well-known company as a large processing unit there,
Mhm.
which is also but I'm trying to think of like how far, how close are we to our immediate or adjacent communities that have similar community impact fees? I guess, well, you have them charted here, but I guess the other number, this chart here shows me the I guess I'm looking at the water, wastewater, and roadway fee comparison chart. The first one with the yellow highlight, and that one looks digestible, because it's like, oh, 13,843, and then I go 2 charts down and I see 1,042,000, but I don't see Pflugerville listed on that chart, just from my knowledge.
right, because with the meeting where we discussed that, it was
Oh.
suggested we compare it to Hutto.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's fine.
I'm
I
catching
can do a comparison for Pflugerville for the next meeting. I just went by
Mhm.
what was suggested at the last
No, you're
meeting.
good. Sorry about that.
Oh no. Maybe we do need to look at Pflugerville too, because they're fairly close. Like I said, we can definitely look into that.
I'm
And-
just thinking of the kind of the people that dotting d- watching how I-35 is filled in between San Marcos and well, really between San Antonio and Austin in the last 12 years, 15 years. I'm thinking of like 130. We have that Pflugerville. It's really that Georgetown to Creedmoor is filling in really fast,
Hmm.
because of the access.
Yeah, and if you go back a little bit on I think on page 22, it's one of the presentations under the minutes. It has what the roadway impact fees were approved as. So the maximum and then the 50% credit. So that's kind of what we really would be maxing at unless we go lower than that. And so you can see service area 1, 2, and 3. So with the credits that we're kind of required to do, service area 1, because these charts are based on already factoring those vehicle miles with that multiplier. So
Yeah.
it's a realistic look of what those would have to pay, but the actual like per vehicle mile cost in service area 1 is about $727, and service area 2 is $517, and service area 3 is $547. So it's not that much higher than Pflugerville's 400. So you get, those numbers, that 727, and then the lower at 517. Those are the ranges there, even with that 315,000 square foot industrial building and having $1 million, fee. So you have a lot of vehicle miles.
Thank you.
And I can get into it on the next item, but there are credits and other developers would do that would lower or
reduce
negate
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, reduce that net maximum fee.
Yeah, like they do get credit if their TIA has improvements that are required and whatnot.
If they put in a traffic signal. They are expensive. They got very expensive very fast.
It's not as easy to put in a traffic signal as you would think. You
I
have to
know.
do studies and traffic counts, and it has to. Yeah.
Soil testing. Yes. Then you have to put soil testing to put a sign up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really hard along like 973 or 290 because that has to get approved by TxDOT.
Yep. Any other questions on item 3?
Nope, no question. Just follow up though. For the next meeting, you're going to provide a comparison chart for Pflugerville.
Yes, I will
Right.
add it to the next meeting.
Okay. and then I think that's it. We don't. There's
All right, so
no
we'll just
action on it.
we'll table this until table or postpone until no
It
action
was.
on this item.
It's no action. It's really
Possible
just to discuss that corrected chart to understand and make sure that we were good with it. And if you had any other questions on
Right.
any
No.
of those things,
And that's when I take suggestions.
Thanks for putting our neighbor back in.
Yeah.
They're literally like down the street from us here. Greg Lane, they're building on.
Yes.
They're very close. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to item 4, which is consideration, discussion, and possible action on a draft roadway impact fee ordinance. Doesn't that sound exciting?
Oh, ordinances are so exciting.
Yes. All right.
So basically, this is just a draft ordinance that Scott and I came up with. The beginning part, I don't know if it's up here or not. Is it? Nope. So the beginning part is just the legal stuff. Based all these impact fees are based on Chapter 395 in the local government code. And then it says that they retained GBA or George Butler Associates to prepare the fee. Then we have to have a public hearing at City Council. And like I said, y'all don't have to come to that. I handle the public hearings. And then basically, then once we decide on sending everything to the city, then the dates get filled in for that. And then basically, then it goes into, like I said, the section 7 is a bunch of definitions that that says what it is, what the city is, what a credit is, final plat, the land use, the maximum fee amounts. There's a bunch of definitions. So if y'all want to read through this, so they're pretty straightforward. It just explains everything that's in the ordinance. So if somebody has a question, they're like, okay, it's right here what it like site related facility means. And then section 8 is the transportation service areas that we had discussed and approved. There's 3 for Manor. And then the impact fees they get adopted. And then section 10 has to do with saying that roadway impact fees are required based on when final plats are recorded. 11 goes into basically how the fees are assessed. And then section 12 goes into exemptions.
If I just 1 second, sorry.
Oh.
So, maybe it's a little tricky, but there's a difference between assessment and collection. So if you read through like the assessment section, it talks about how they shall pay the maximum accessible transportation impact fee, and that's like the high amount, but that's not actually what they pay, because again, that's the assessment. And so the plaintiffs, when they plats are come in and the development plans come in, we'll say based on their service area and their proposed development intensity, what that assessment should be. And there's a couple different sections on that, but it basically sets that high number, like the most they would ever have to pay if they did. And then there's a little section in between for the exemptions, which schools don't have to pay the impact fees, but that's fine. And then I was planning on getting to section 13, there is actually the collection, and so that's what they pay, and so that's the transportation impact fee. So should you want to reduce those rates, those $700 and $500 rates a little lower, that's actually what gets charged. And so we say, okay, here's your maximum, but based on the approved transportation impact fee, it's really this amount, and that's what gets paid with their building permits or their plats, depending on which is applicable. If you want me to jump ahead, but the next one kind of talks about the credits, and that's where it comes in, where they say if you're building eligible infrastructure system facilities, then you can reduce it. So, for instance, the example of that industrial building that had $1 million transportation or impact fee, maybe they had $500,000 worth of traffic improvements, like a signal, then that would, if it was a system facility and was part of the plan, the thoroughfare plan, or the roadway impact fee plan, sorry, we can credit that against them. So then they would actually only be paying 500,000 for their impact fee and not the million because they're constructing infrastructure. And through their constructed improvements, they can go all the way down to zero. I mean, we won't have to owe them any money at any point, but they can eliminate this roadway impact fee if they construct those system facilities. And they don't necessarily need to be on city facilities. We can accept, improvements on TxDOT or Travis County right away. It's in there. So it isn't necessarily like, they did $1 million worth of improvements on 290 and they still have to pay $1 million to us because it wasn't a city road. It still qualifies because it's in the service area. It maybe not actually shown on the thoroughfare plan or within the roadway impact fee because we only did our thoroughfare plan and traffic impact analysis on our city roads, but it may add the capacity. It may be a qualifying expense there. Sorry.
Oh, no, good job. So I think Scott explained the credits. And I guess we'll have separate accounts set up for each service area, and then there's 10 years to use it. And it goes through establishing the different accounts, impact fee, at least by the regulations, updates to the plans and revision of fees. That just, kind of like the water and wastewater impact fees, we may have to come back and adjust the roadway impact fees. And then refunds, I guess, if the money's not used within 10 years, then the city has to give the money back to the developer.
What is the are there lessons to be learned from other municipalities that have impact fees like this of that I know that 10-year capture, the 10-year send back is a real thing for a lot of municipalities. Are there steps that we've seen from some successful communities of, I guess, like we talked about earlier, building that list, that priority list, and just making sure that it's executed? I also think that almost creates like an FTE demand, which could be, I don't know if that could be fee funded. It probably can't be because it has to be dedicated to roadway capacity. But how do you make sure that you receive the money, but also prioritize and fund those, get the money out the door as fast as well as you're getting it in the door?
Yeah, that would be maybe after or concurrent if you don't want to, do things after the fact, but putting together or working within this ordinance, maybe even like those policies and having maybe another appendix to this ordinance that gets updated as the impact fees are updated of that priority list, and trying to make sure that, as we kind of discussed before too, like providing those recommendations to the city council during their budgeting time of just like, hey, don't forget these like lists. You have 10 years to spend these monies, and we're recommending as the Community Impact Advisory Committee and or the Planning Commission on these capital improvements to see some roadway improvements within your budget using these allocated funds. And those types of policies can be worked into sections within this ordinance. As I said before, maybe there's an exhibit that's those prioritized improvements.
Okay. I just don't want to put more work. I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, you're doing great work. Do more work, because I know that keeping track of that is kind of a whole thing. But
Yeah, I mean, Public Works will be certainly involved. I mean,
Yes.
their roads, especially obviously if it's a city road,
That's
that these improvements go on, and then engineering, and it's not just us two. There's lots of team behind
Yes.
us, but yeah.
okay.
Then I guess the developer can appeal any decisions for the fees. And then there are usual clauses at the end and the effective date. And then, so Exhibit A would be the traffic impact fee study. I'm working on that now. I will have that for the next meeting. What that is, I've done it for water and wastewater. It just goes through all the steps and provides council information about how we came up with the fees. And so it'll have everything in there. And then basically that's how we show them, that's how we calculated the impact fees. And Exhibit B, we will fill that in next time because we will decide as a committee what the impact fees you want to recommend to council, whether it be just like what's calculated or if it's a flat rate. And it could be what's calculated for like residential, and then for non-residential, we could, recommend setting a flat rate. Ultimately, it is up to council what they decide the amounts to be. But as a committee, we can make the recommendation to them what we think we could. I mean, we could do all this, and they decide not to do it. So we'll see what happens. And like I said, we can add an additional exhibit, which it probably needs to be in there anyway, because the water and wastewater has one where it's got all the maps and everything. Well, I guess that'll be in the impact fee study. It's got all the maps and everything, but showing the service areas. So I know that was a lot to take in.
Thank you.
So,
Does anyone have any other questions for staff? We're gonna make fees fun, right?
Oh, just wait till we do
Oh.
water and wastewater. That's
Oh,
always
gosh.
fun.
I think about
Water
all
and
that-
wastewater is a lot easier because you
Yes.
don't have service areas and it's not
Yeah.
as complex as the roadway one.
You don't see it either. It's all underground, all just mystery
They
stuff.
should come with skits.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, sure, no problem.
I know. I'm sorry. This is very me. I'm very casual. I try to be fun. Any other questions? Comments from the dais? Thank you, staff, for working on this. Thanks for bringing our neighbors back to the
sure.
grid. And we like seeing our faraway neighbor. We love a good hippo too. So thank you for bringing it into it. Well, if that is it, and that is the conclusion of our business at 20:50 or 8:50 p.m., the meeting of the City of Manor. I should have this in front of me. The City of Manor Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee is now adjourned.